When you end up in the wrong place, things just seem to go sideways. It wasn't my fault, though. I was sitting at a red light when a guy next to me waved for me to roll down my window. He pointed out that my tire looked low. I was grateful for the heads up, so I thanked him and drove into the Walmart parking lot to check it out. Sure enough, there was a screw stuck in the tire, letting out air. Annoyed, I thought, great, what now? I decided to fix it quickly, so I went into Walmart and bought a can of tire sealant, aka slime. Back at my car, I took out the screw, which was a bad move because the tire started hissing air even faster. I quickly put the screw back in, then rushed to the gas station nearby to pump some air into the tire. With only 15 miles left to home, I figured I'd keep an eye on it and use the slime if the pressure got too low. About 5 miles from home, I noticed the tire was still going flat. I stopped at a convenience store, but they didn't have an air pump. It was time to try the slime. I put it in the tire, and though some green goo came out, which is why it's called slime, the hissing stopped, and the leak seemed sealed. Just as I was getting back into my car, a huge pickup truck with giant tires pulled into the lot. The truck was so tall it looked like you'd need a ladder to get in. The driver must have been trying to make a statement. I recognized the truck from somewhere. The driver, a tall guy in cowboy boots and a big belt buckle, stepped out. I couldn't help but laugh at his outfit, but my amusement quickly faded when the passenger door opened and a stunning woman with jet black hair got out, catching my eye. I definitely knew her. It was Megan, my wife of 18 years. What on earth was going on? I was parked off to the side and they didn't even see my car. It's a company car, one of those small, boxy imports, so maybe it just blended in. They were holding hands as they walked into the store, and she was laughing up at him like she was having the time of her life. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I just stood there completely frozen. Then it hit me where I'd seen that guy before. He worked at Megan's job. She's the office manager at a mental health clinic, and he's one of the caseworkers. I'd seen his truck at her work before, so what the heck was Megan doing with him? I couldn't remember his name for a minute, but then it came to me. Jerry Garner. But why wasn't Megan at work today? I had to find out. I got back in my car and waited. When they came out of the store, Jerry helped Megan into the passenger seat and they both had coffee cups. They drove off and I followed them at a safe distance. They pulled into our driveway and went into the garage. The door shut behind them and I couldn't see anything more. I waited for half an hour, but my tire situation was stressing me out. I kept checking it, but it seemed okay for now. After 2 hours, the garage door finally opened again and they drove past me. I held a folder up to my face just in case, but honestly, they were too wrapped up in each other to notice me. Megan doesn't get off work until 5, and it was only 2:30. I had plenty of time. My plan was to go in and see what I could find out. I had to pick up my 15-year-old daughter, Valerie, at 4. I had no idea how I was going to explain this to her. I couldn't even imagine what I'd find when I got inside, but I hoped I'd get some answers. When I walked in, everything was so quiet. The only noise was the drip of that faucet in Valerie's bathroom that I'd been meaning to fix. The air conditioner was humming softly, but that was it. I looked around but didn't see anything too weird. I went upstairs and saw that the bed had fresh sheets. My heart just sank when I saw that. I ended up leaning against the wall and sliding down to the floor. I was completely numb. I must have sat there for about 30 minutes, just staring into space. My thoughts were all over the place, like I was in a daze. My stomach was starting to feel sick, so I got up and grabbed a Sprite from the fridge. I was feeling hot and sweaty, so I went to the bathroom. I rummaged through the vanity for a washcloth, soaked it in the sink, and splashed some cold water on my face. It made me feel a bit better. That's when I noticed something else. The shower floor was wet. They must have taken a shower before heading back to work. I went back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling like I was in a trance. This was the bed where Megan and her lover had just been. The thought made me jump up, horrified. This was where it had all happened. I had no clue what to do next. Well, getting a divorce from Megan was a given, but beyond that, I was completely lost. I didn't know any lawyers and had no idea how to start, and I still had to pick up Valerie from school. What was I going to tell her? I felt totally overwhelmed and confused. I stumbled out to the car, feeling like I'd been partying nonstop for days. My head was pounding and I looked like I'd been hit by a truck. I knew I shouldn't be driving, but I couldn't leave Valerie waiting. It hit me hard. She's really the only person I can truly rely on right now. My little girl needed to be okay, and I had to make sure she was. Everything I did from now on had to be about her. When I pulled up in the line of cars, I saw her waiting at the school doors. She walked toward the car with that familiar grace that made my heart ache. Valerie looked so much like her mother, with dark hair and Mediterranean skin. Her eyes were incredible, dark brown with hints of gold and green. The doctor called them hazel, but they were unique to me. She was tall like me, with long honey-brown legs and a kind of beauty that always took my breath away. She threw her backpack into the back seat and climbed in. When she slid over to kiss me, she stopped and froze, sensing something was off. "Dad, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice rising with concern. "Are you sick? Did something happen? Is Mom okay? What's going on?" Her fear was clear, and I had to say something. "I'm okay, kitten," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "No one's hurt or sick or anything. I just need to talk to you. Let's go to the park and I'll explain everything there. Please don't ask any more questions until we get there, okay?" "Okay, Dad, but you're kind of scaring me," she replied. "I know, kitten, but everything's going to be all right," I told her, hoping I wasn't just trying to comfort myself. The drive to the park only took about 5 minutes. I'd pushed her on those swings more times than I could count. Megan and I had spent countless hours on those benches watching her play. Were those days of happiness all I had left? Just memories of better times? We walked over to one of the benches, and Valerie grabbed my hand, swinging our arms back and forth like she used to when she was a little kid learning to walk. We sat down, and I struggled to find the right words to start. "Just tell me, Dad," she said. "I can handle it." "Well, I'm not sure I can," I admitted. The whole story came pouring out. I told her everything. What I'd seen, what I was feeling. The tears just kept coming, streaming down my face like a river. Valerie held my hand the whole time, and when I finally ran out of words, she snuggled up next to me. "It doesn't sound good, Dad," she said. "We need to go home and talk to Mom. We need to hear her side of things. I know it looks bad, but we don't have the full story yet. We need to ask her." I kissed the top of her head, feeling so proud of her bravery. She tugged on my hand until I stood up. "Do you want to drive?" I asked, knowing she'd just gotten her learner's permit. Her eyes lit up with excitement. A shadow crossed her face for a moment as she thought about it, but then she smiled and agreed. She drove us home carefully, and when we pulled into the driveway, Megan's car was in the garage. This was it. Megan greeted us at the door with hugs and kisses. You'd never guess she was involved in anything shady. Either she was putting on a great act, or I had completely misunderstood what I'd seen. "Do you two want takeout tonight?" Megan asked. "My treat." "I think we need to talk to you for a minute, Mom," Valerie said. "Okay. Is everything all right, baby?" Megan asked, looking concerned. "I don't know," Valerie replied. "Let's find out." We walked inside, and I flopped down on the couch next to Valerie. That left Megan stuck in that awful chair she'd insisted on getting. "What's up?" she asked, acting like nothing was wrong. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. She gave me a curious look. Same old," she said. "One of the drug reps brought lunch from the onion bin. It was pretty busy and I barely had a minute. Why are you asking?" "So, you were at the office all day?" Valerie jumped in. "Yep," she replied. "Why all the questions? What's going on?" "So, you weren't at home with Jerry Garner this afternoon?" I pressed. Her face went white. "Of course not," she said. "Are you accusing me of something, Fred?" "I saw you," I said. "What? You didn't see anything?" She started stammering. "What are you trying to pull?" "He's lying, Valerie. I was at the office all day. Ask Angel if you don't believe me." "No, I don't think he's lying, Mom," Valerie said firmly. "I think you're the one lying. I'm not going to ask Angel. She'd cover for you. I think I'll call David Jones. He's your boss, right? I doubt he'd lie for you. What's his number?" "He's gone for the night," Megan said quickly. "I'll have him call you tomorrow. What are you two doing? Trying to set me up? Do you think you can just come in here and catch me in a lie? What are you accusing me of?" "I think you're the one who messed up," I told her. "You lied, Megan. We all know you did. Why'd you do that?" I could see her brain working overtime. "All right, fine, I was here," she admitted. "This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you. I knew you'd grill me and accuse me of something. No one's accusing you of anything yet," Valerie said. "But now I am. You tried to make Dad look like he was lying just to cover up your own lie. What's going on, Mom? Are you seeing that guy, Jerry?" "You don't even know him," Megan said. "Why call him a jerk?" "I've met him a couple of times," Valerie replied. "The way he looks at me makes me uncomfortable. But that's not the point. Are you having an affair with him?" Megan looked between us like a cornered animal. "I didn't want it to come out like this," she finally said. "I wasn't ready." Ready for what? Valerie asked. I've fallen in love with Jerry, Megan confessed. She glanced at me. I'm sorry, Fred. It just happened. We work closely together and I don't know. He feels like he completes me. We connected and it's real. We're in love. I was going to tell you when the time was right. Once we both get divorced, we plan to get married. I'm really sorry it came out this way. Valerie, everything will be okay. You can still see your dad whenever you want. Jerry has a great place by the lake and a daughter too. He likes you and we're going to be happy together. Are you out of your mind? Valerie practically shouted. I'm not living with that jerk. He'd probably try to come into my room at night or something. No way am I staying here with him. I'm going to be with Dad and I'm not going to be around you anymore. How could you do this? She spun around and stormed up to her room, slamming the door behind her. I heard the lock click into place. Megan looked at me like it was no big deal. She'll get over it, she said. Jerry is actually a really great guy. I think you'd like him if you got to know him. I'm sorry, but I need to be happy, and Jerry makes me happy. That's what matters. I just stared at her, confused. Who was this person? It was like she'd turned into a stranger. I wasn't going to argue with someone who seemed so out of touch with reality. Whatever, Megan, I said. When are you moving out? Moving out, she said, sounding confused. I'm not moving out. I don't have anywhere to go. Jerry is married, so we can't just do anything until we talk to his wife. We need to sort out divorces and see how the settlements go first. No, you're moving out, I told her firmly. I'm giving you 3 days. Her mouth fell open in shock. What are you talking about? You can't kick me out of my own house. If anything, you should be the one to move. You're forgetting something, I said. This is my house. I owned it before I even met you. It was paid for and fully mine before we got married. This place isn't a marital asset. My name is on the deed, not yours. So you're the one who's moving out. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. Are you just going to throw me out on the street? I don't really care where you go, I said. Maybe you can find a room at some cheap motel or a place that rents by the hour. You know, one of those spots where people like you end up. Her eyes started welling up with tears. That really hurts, Fred, she said. There's no need to be mean. I didn't plan on falling for Jerry. It just happened. We just clicked. And I knew I wanted to be with him. I wasn't trying to hurt you. So you hurt me by accident, I replied. Kind of like running with a stick and poking your eye out. Mom always warned me about that. Now I get how it happens. Well, if it's an accident, then I guess that makes it okay. There's no need to be so sarcastic, she said. Why can't you just accept that we're in love, Fred? Well, I don't know, Megan, I said. Maybe it's because this morning you told me you loved me. Now you're saying you love him. I'm a bit confused here. I do love you, Fred, she said. I'll always love you. I'm just in love with Jerry. Oh, well, that clears it up, I said. You've been telling me every day for the last 18 years that you were in love with me. I thought that was why we got married. We were in love. Guess I was just fooling myself. Oh, no, we were in love, she said, reaching out to hold my hand. I pulled away. You have 3 days, Megan, I said. If you're not out by then, I'll have the sheriff come and get you and your stuff thrown out onto the driveway. Please, Fred, she said, sounding scared now. It doesn't have to end like this. We can still be friends. Jerry wants to be friends with you, too. We've got Valerie to think about. I've told you I still care about you and don't want to lose you as a friend. We've been together for too long to just throw it all away. I just stared at her for a moment, feeling my sadness and sense of loss get replaced by a surge of pure, white-hot anger. You must be out of your mind, Megan, I said. Friends? With you? With that jerk? I don't think so. You need to tell him that if he ever sees me, it better be for a split second before he runs as fast as he can. And as for you, you're the enemy now. I'm going to get this house sorted out. You've got 3 days to pack up and get out, then I don't want to see you ever again. I'm calling a lawyer in the morning and we'll get this divorce moving as fast as possible. I turned and walked to the bedroom, leaving her behind, making all sorts of noises. To me, they were just meaningless sounds. She followed me around, still talking about being friends, while I moved her stuff into the spare bedroom. She had so many clothes in the closet that I couldn't carry them all at once. I just draped them over my arm and carried them to the spare bedroom, hanging them up in the closet. She trailed behind me, jabbering away. But when she went to hang up the clothes, I took that chance to leave and lock the bedroom door. I heard her trying the knob and then walking away. A few minutes later, Valerie texted me. You okay, Dad? Yeah, kitten, you? No, but I will be, she replied. Okay, love you, I texted back. Let me know if you need anything. Can you take me to school in the morning? She asked. I don't want to be in the car with her. Sure, I replied. I got into bed and laid there for hours, trying to figure out what to do next. I must have fallen asleep around 3, and then my phone alarm went off. I got up, took a quick shower, and called my boss. I told him I was going through a divorce and needed some time off. He told me to take as much time as I needed and was really understanding about it. I went ahead and made some coffee, had a couple of cups, and fixed breakfast for Valerie and me. She came down right on time, looking as lovely as ever, and scarfed down her food. Megan eventually came in, grabbed a cup of coffee, and tried to chat with us, but we didn't pay her any attention. It was time to take Valerie to school, so Megan asked her if she was ready. Valerie just stared at her, then turned to me and asked, "You ready, Dad?" I jingled the keys, and Valerie grabbed her backpack. "Fine, you two can act like toddlers if you want," Megan said. She huffed off to get her purse, gave us one last dirty look, and left. I dropped Valerie off at school, and she gave me a kiss before heading in. I stayed in the car for a bit, watching her go inside. I started thinking about my friend Dan. He'd just gone through a divorce, so I figured I'd call him and see which lawyer he used. Dan didn't recommend his own lawyer. Instead, he suggested I use his ex-wife's attorney. He gave me the name, and I looked up the number. When I called, a woman answered and put me on hold after I explained what I needed. She said she could see me that afternoon, so I scheduled an appointment. I had some investments to sort out, which would be tricky. To prevent Megan from racking up credit card debt, I called and lowered the limits on our cards to $500 each. It would be inconvenient for me too, but I wasn't about to foot the bill for her plans. My meeting with Elizabeth Baxter didn't start off smoothly. She seemed to have some wrong ideas about why I was there and needed to clear that up before we could dive into the details. She assumed I was leaving Megan for a newer model, and I needed to correct that impression first. I told her, "You've got to reconsider. Megan's been cheating on me with a coworker. They're both married and planning to divorce their spouses to be together." She looked uncomfortable and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't take on a case like this. I just couldn't live with myself." "I get it," I said, "but we have a daughter and I want to handle this as smoothly as possible. Do you think I have a shot at getting custody of her?" "It's possible," she replied. "Legally, either parent can be considered for custody. In reality, though, fathers often have a hard time getting custody, especially of teenage girls. How old is she, and does she want to stay with you?" "She's 15, I said, "and she's told me she wants to stay with me." "That helps a lot," she said. "In this state, kids over 14 can choose where they want to live, and younger kids' preferences are also taken into account. If she were younger, it would be tougher, but being 15 and wanting to live with you should really support your case. It shouldn't be too big of an issue." "Just do your best," I said. I went home, feeling uncertain about what to do next. I knew I needed to take action, but it had to be legal. I couldn't afford to end up in jail. It would mean losing Valerie, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I needed to figure out my options carefully. I had to be cautious. After all, you don't want to set fire to someone's house and accidentally burn down your own. It was going to take some serious planning and thought. I figured Jerry's wife was probably as clueless as I was, so the first thing I needed to do was let her know. I made a mental list of what I needed to do. Telling her family was definitely top of that list. Megan's parents loved me and adored Valerie, so I had to tell them too. But I wasn't sure how to break the news. I also planned to make sure all our friends knew, and I figured I could stir up enough of a social media storm to really make things interesting for them. That was my main focus. Megan had a family Facebook account, and I was pretty familiar with it since I used Messenger and poked around on it now and then. I did some digging and found out that Jerry's wife was active on Facebook too. I took some screenshots and posted on Megan's page about the divorce, saying she'd found her soulmate in Jerry and included a picture of him. Then I changed the password and logged out. It felt good to do that. I was curious to see how long it would take before her friends and family started blowing up her phone and Facebook. I hoped Jerry's wife would get the message. I didn't know her, so I felt a bit bad about the chaos I was causing her. But if she was anything like me, she'd prefer to know the truth rather than stay in the dark. I called my mom next. The conversation went pretty much how I expected. She was initially in shock, but she said she'd tell my dad and that they'd be there for me no matter what I needed. I figured I'd let Megan handle telling her parents herself. We were close, and I didn't want to be the bad guy. I had no idea how I'd even explain things to them. "Your daughter's been cheating" didn't seem like the best way to start. They might even blame me for it. Things blew up pretty quickly. Around 2 p.m., Megan's name popped up on my phone. I answered, and she was furious. "You a-hole!" She started off strong, which felt oddly satisfying. "You couldn't just let it be, could you? I know you locked me out of Facebook. You need to take that down. Jerry's wife doesn't know yet. My friends are blowing up my phone asking what's going on. My parents know now. Fred, you better take that down." "Nope, not happening," I told her. "What? Are you 5 years old? Take it down, Fred. I'm serious." "Why should I?" I asked. "You should be glad. Everyone's getting the full scoop on you and your new soulmate. Are you embarrassed that people know you're cheating, Megan?" "I'm not." She hesitated, probably realizing how ridiculous she sounded. "Fred, please take it down. It wasn't supposed to be like this." "You lost the right to control how this goes the moment you cheated," I told her. "You've lost any claim to my respect or even courtesy. As far as I'm concerned, you're the enemy now. Deal with it." I hung up and immediately got another buzz from her, but I ignored it. It was time to pick up Valerie. When I picked her up, I filled her in on what Elizabeth Baxter had said. She was relieved that she'd likely be staying with me, but still upset overall. "What's up with Mom, Dad?" she asked. "I love her, but she's always seemed a bit off. It's like she's never really grown up. Not like you. Sometimes it feels like I have two kids, her and me. Have you noticed that too?" "Not exactly," I said. "Now that you mention it, she's always been kind of impulsive, but I never thought she'd go this far." "Well, we'll just have to deal with it," she said. "Dad, I do not want to be in the same house as that creep without you there. Do whatever you need to do to make sure that doesn't happen, okay?" "I'll do my best," I promised. We grabbed some pizza on the way home, and I was digging into my second slice when my phone buzzed. It was Bob, Megan's dad. I wasn't looking forward to this call. I told Valerie who it was, and she told me to put it on speaker. Bob didn't waste any time. "Fred, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but Megan showed up here last night asking if she could stay with us. Care to explain?" "Did you ask her?" I said. "She said you kicked her out." "Well, I did, but did she tell you why?" "No, she said she'd explain later, but she wasn't ready." "Are you sure you don't want to wait for her explanation?" I asked. "Can't you just tell me?" he asked. "She's been having an affair with Jerry Garner, a guy she works with. He's planning to divorce his wife. She was planning to divorce me, and they're hooking up," I said. "What? That's insane, Fred. How do you know this?" "I caught them together yesterday," I said. "Plus, she told me herself." "Are you sure you didn't get it wrong?" he asked. Valerie spoke up. "Hi, Grandpa. I've been listening. Dad has you on speaker, so there's no misunderstanding. I was there when Mom told him. I'm really sorry, Grandpa. I love you." She started crying, and he could hear it. When he spoke again, his voice was shaky. "Don't cry, sweetheart. Please stay strong, okay? I love you too, and so does Grandma. I'll try to talk some sense into your mom. Fred, are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here, Bob. I'm sorry about all this. Don't worry about Valerie. You're her grandparents, and that won't change. I know you care about Megan, and you'll do what you need to do. I really respect you both. I hope you won't hate me when this is over." "Never," he said. "I'll find out what's going on. Call me if you need anything." It went better than I expected. Life throws curveballs, and you just do the best you can. No need to get into all the details of the divorce. Most people know how it goes. It's long, tough, and never really gets easier. Megan was apparently delusional, thinking she'd get custody of Valerie. That didn't happen. Miss Baxter was as good as they say, and I ended up with full custody because Valerie wanted to live with me. The judge decided Megan could visit but not have Valerie alone with her and Jerry Garner. That wasn't a problem anyway. Jerry's wife divorced him, and it turned out that whole soulmate thing was more hype than reality. Just 2 weeks after I found out about their affair, he was already onto someone new. All those big plans just faded away. The divorce took 7 months to finalize. Megan surprised me at our second court appearance when she asked the judge for counseling. Neither Miss Baxter nor I could really change the judge's mind, so we were ordered to have 8 to 10 counseling sessions. We ended up with this really out-there old hippie for our counseling. The first session started with us explaining what we hoped to get out of it. Megan had this long, complicated explanation. It was like she thought the universe should revolve around making her happy and that she had only been trying to spread joy, not harm. My goal was way simpler. "What are your goals for these sessions, Mr. Berryman?" the counselor asked. "I just want to get through them," I said. Our so-called spirit guide looked puzzled. "Mr. Berryman, Don't you have any interest in working on the issues that led to your marriage ending? Sorry, Mr. Rodman, but it wasn't my issues that caused this. And honestly, I'm not interested in working on them. I'm fine with my issues and plan to keep them until I die. Megan looked shocked and jumped in. Fred, how do you expect to fix things if you won't even talk about it? I don't, I replied. Let me be clear. I don't care about fixing things or working on issues. I'm here because the court told me to be. I'll do whatever is needed to meet the court's requirements, then we'll go back to court and get the divorce. That's my plan. Do you realize that if I report to the judge that you're not cooperating, you could be found in contempt? Mr. Guru asked. I didn't know that, I said. But if you go to the judge and lie, I'm sure my lawyer would love to get the recordings of these sessions to prove it. I'm here and doing what's required. I told you my goals and I'm cooperating. He turned red. I'm sure the judge expected you to try to work things out, he said. I'm not responsible for what the judge expects, I told him. I'm only responsible for what I expect. He tried to make things tough. He gave me assignments that involved spending a lot of time with Megan, and she really pushed hard to get me to change my mind. Fred, what will it take for you to call off the divorce and work things out? She asked. I told her, an act of God. She looked at me, expecting an explanation. But I didn't say anything more. After a while, she asked, What do you mean, an act of God? I answered, Well, if you figured out a way to turn back time and undo everything with Jerry, that would work. Otherwise, I don't know anyone other than God who can do that. Have you discovered any new powers, Megan? Besides the power to attract other guys, I mean. We went through the same boring exercises and repetitive tasks until the sessions finally ended. Back in court, the judge asked if we had made any progress. Elizabeth Baxter said, Your Honor, there's no chance my client is going to stay married to his wife. We want to get this divorce finalized as quickly as possible. My client and his daughter have been put through enough. It seemed like the judge agreed because 10 days later, the divorce decree arrived in the mail. Valerie spent quite a bit of time with her mother since she loved her grandparents and was always over there. Megan would occasionally plan things that Valerie was willing to join in on, but it was never the same. Valerie mostly hung out with her friends, especially one girl named Sue. Sue was this tiny, cute blonde who practically lived with us. She was as adorable as a kitten and as sweet as can be. I was glad to have her around, and soon they started including me in some of their hangouts. One of their favorite things to do was water skiing. We had a boat, so during summer vacation, we usually spent most Saturdays at a nearby lake. One Monday, Valerie and Sue asked if we could go to the lake for the weekend, take the RV, and stay until Sunday evening. Since my schedule was pretty open, I thought it was a great idea. Valerie and Sue spent the whole week planning, and by Thursday we had packed up everything they wanted to bring. On Friday afternoon, a new red Jeep Cherokee pulled into our driveway. Sue jumped out, and a woman who looked just like her got out of the driver's side. Valerie ran over and gave this woman a big hug. She then brought the woman over to me. Dad, Valerie said, this is Julie. She's Sue's mom. I know you haven't met her yet. Julie reached out her hand and said, Hi, Fred. The girls have talked about you a lot. Thanks for inviting me this weekend. Honestly, I've been a bit jealous because they spend so much time with you instead of me. She gave me a playful smile, and I immediately saw where Sue got her charm. I glanced at Valerie, and she shot me a serious look. My knees almost gave out, and I knew when to give in. The situation only got more intense when I looked at Sue, who gave me a raised eyebrow. It's going to be a blast, I said to Julie, trying to regain my composure. We always have a great time. Julie wasn't fooled. She looked from me to the girls and back again. Oh my God, she said. You didn't know, did you? Girls. Julie didn't get a chance to say much more before she was swamped by hugs, kisses, and pleas. Sue said, Please, Mom, don't worry. We're going to have a blast. And Valerie added, It's okay, Julie. Dad's a great guy, and he'll like you just as much as I do. Look how easily he went along with it. Julie finally managed to break free and gave them a look. You two go sit on the porch. I need to talk to Fred for a minute, she said. They hesitated a bit, but when she said, Now, they scurried off. Julie turned back to me, looking apologetic. I'm so sorry, Fred. I didn't realize. I think I should take Sue and go. She's going to be grounded for a month. This is so embarrassing. She seemed so small and flustered that I took a step forward and gave her a hug. At first, she tensed up, but then relaxed. Yeah, it is embarrassing, I said. They're a bit mischievous, but they're harmless. Let me guess. You're not married? Julie looked up at me and laughed. She was really cute. No, I'm not. Do you think that's what this is about? I'm pretty sure, I said. Here's the thing. You're all packed, you've got the weekend free, the weather's going to be amazing at the lake, and you know I'm not a bad guy since you've been around Valerie. So why not just go with it? It'll be fun, and we can maybe give the girls a little lesson. What do you think? She looked over at the girls who were watching expectantly and said, "Okay, let's do it." I gave the girls a thumbs up, and they jumped up, excited to join us. I heard Valerie shout, "Yeet!" as they rushed over. I stopped them and put an arm around each of them. "Hey girls, that wasn't very nice," I said. Sue looked up at me and grinned, doing her best Skeletor impression. "I am not nice." The girls had me laughing so hard I couldn't continue. They were just too cute and innocent. I said, "I see what you're doing, but seriously, stop. You can't just play matchmaker with other people's lives." Valerie tried to defend herself. "But I really like Jules, and I didn't know how to get you to meet her." "Well, you could have just told me," I said. She looked a bit down, so I softened. "It's okay, kitten. Just don't do it again, all right?" She perked up right away. Sue grabbed my arm and said, "Let's go. I'm so excited. This is going to be awesome, Fred. You'll see." Julie chuckled. "I think sick nasty is supposed to be a big compliment, Fred. And she's right. We're wasting daylight." We grabbed a couple of bags from Julie's Jeep and climbed in. With the boat hitched and a quick stop for propane, we were off. It took us about half an hour to get to the lake, and Julie sat up front with me while the girls blasted some terrible music through their Bluetooth speakers. We chatted and got to know each other. Turns out Julie runs her own insurance company and also does financial planning. As I glanced at her while talking, I thought, man, she's really cute. I imagined Sue would look like her when she got older. Julie looked a lot younger than me, but she was only 3 years younger. She was petite, with light blonde hair that fell to her lower back and a nice tan. She had big brown eyes, high cheekbones, and a heart-shaped face with a widow's peak. She was dressed in jeans and a button-up top, and she had a slender, willowy build. I didn't want to seem creepy, so I tried not to stare until we got to the lake. We parked the boat and then the RV, and the girls told me to get out while they changed. I used the time to hook up the water. Once they were done, I changed into my trunks and a t-shirt, and we were ready to hit the lake. We packed up a cooler with drinks and set off. After we got out of the no-wake zone, I really opened it up and we sped a couple of miles down the lake. The girls were eager to ski, so they shed their long t-shirts and got into their usual ski gear. They looked great, but Julie really stood out. Julie was tiny, but she had this impressive, all-woman vibe going on. When she turned to watch the girls skiing, I couldn't help but notice how amazing she looked in her swimsuit. It wasn't super trendy, but it fit her perfectly. Her swimsuit did a pretty good job of covering her curves, but it was a struggle, especially her backside, which was firm and perfectly shaped. When she caught me staring, she just smiled and winked. She had a petite frame, and everything about her was just right. "Done?" she asked, her smile making the moment feel relaxed. Her teeth were perfect, too. I laughed and said, "For now. Julie, you know how you look. I'm a guy. What can I say?" She moved closer so she could talk to me and keep an eye on the girls. We spent the next 3 hours skiing, and Julie turned out to be really good at it. She drove the boat while I took my turn, and she was skilled at that too. I wasn't as good as she or the girls, but I managed to hold my own. When we got back to the park, everyone changed into their comfy wraps. Even though the RV had a perfectly good kitchen, the girls wanted to cook outside. So we set up the camp stove and I got a fire going in the grill. I tossed bratwursts on the grill while they chopped up potatoes and onions and opened cans of pork and beans. We'd prepped and packed some meals before, but there's something about camp cooking that makes everything taste better. We settled down at the picnic table that came with the site, and it felt like we'd all known each other forever. Julie started going by Jules, which the girls loved, and she started calling me Freddie. A few times, the girls mentioned that Jules wasn't married, so I finally asked her about it. "You're gorgeous, funny, smart, and you've got your own business. Why hasn't some guy snatched you up yet?" She paused for a bit before answering. "Well, the main reason is Sue," she said finally. "I was pretty young and naive. I was in my senior year of college and thought I'd found the love of my life. I found out I was pregnant a week before graduation. I wasn't too upset because we had talked about getting married as soon as we finished school." "I'm guessing that didn't work out since you're talking about it like it's in the past," I said. "Nope," she confirmed. 3 days after I told Brad about the baby, I found out he'd been cheating on me for a month. I kicked him to the curb and didn't look back. When Sue was born, I didn't have time for dating. Then I got wrapped up in building my business. By the time I had a moment to think about dating again, I realized I had this amazing gift in Sue. and everything I did had to include her. I get it, I said. I feel the same way about Valerie. As long as I've got her, she's my top priority. She's been my rock for the last 18 months. Julie put her little hand on my arm and said, I know. She talks about you all the time with Sue and me. I'm really sorry, Freddie. Yeah, life can be tough sometimes, I agreed, and we both sighed. We glanced over and saw Valerie and Sue watching us with big, loving smiles from their camp chairs under the awning, whispering to each other. I really care about your daughter, I told Julie. It feels like she's almost mine with how much time she spends with us. She cares about you too, Julie replied. She told me recently that you're like the father she never had. I saw Julie's eyes fill up with tears and one dropped down her cheek. I gently wiped it away with my finger. She's a fantastic kid, I said. You've done an amazing job raising her. It must have taken a lot of courage to do it on your own. Julie smiled through her tears, stood up, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and joined the girls. The weekend was awesome, and when it was time for Julie and Sue to head home, I went up to her car and tapped on her window. Hey, Jules, would you be interested in going out with me next Friday? I asked. Sue squealed with excitement, and Jules gave me one of her big, bright smiles. What time? She asked. How about 6? I suggested. We'll have dinner and do something fun afterward. And is it okay if Valerie stays with Sue while we're out? That sounds perfect, and of course, Jules said. She gave me another kiss on the cheek, and then they were off. Valerie was waiting for me at the door. So, did you ask her out? Did you give her a kiss? She asked eagerly. I gave her a hug and gave her a playful swat on the bottom. Yep, I did, and it's none of your business. She let out a squeal, just like Sue did. I knew it. She's perfect for you, Dad. I love her so much, and Sue is like a sister to me. I shrugged. Whatever happens, happens, Valerie. You can't force these things. Stop trying to play matchmaker. She snuggled into my chest. I know, Dad, but you were never going to do anything about it on your own. Not that I mind being the only woman in your life. I chuckled. You'll always have a special place in my heart, Valerie. You're my baby, and that's never going to change. She purred and stayed close for a moment before heading off to do her own thing. Our first date went really well. I took her to play racquetball. She was new to it, but she'd played tennis before, so the basic moves were familiar. Once she got the hang of the rules and hitting off the walls, she was pretty awesome. Being a natural athlete definitely helped. She was super quick and could change directions faster than I could, which is a big advantage when you're petite. After we were done, we relaxed at a table outside the courts, drinking and catching our breath. She pulled out her phone. Let's send a snap to the kids, she suggested. We posed with our rackets and goggles, and she took a snap. They replied quickly, and we had a fun memory from the night. After that, we both showered, and I took her out for dinner. We went to a great Italian place and ended up eating way too much. It was a blast. We were wrapping up our wine, just relaxing in the booth. Jules was sitting right next to me, and it felt really natural to put my arm around her. She snuggled up close and gave me that sweet smile of hers. I couldn't help but think how adorable she was, and it hit me that she'd always be cute, no matter how much time passes. When we got to her place, she leaned over, giving me that look that said she wanted a kiss. I gave her one, and it was even better than I'd hoped. It was a long, satisfying kiss with her soft, plush lips, and she tasted like wine and cherry chapstick. As we pulled apart, I noticed the curtains moving slightly. Looks like we might have an audience, I said with a grin. She laughed, sounding a lot like her daughter. I'm not surprised. You know they're trying to set us up, right? Does that bother you? I asked. She blushed a bit. Not at all. I like everything I know about you, Freddie. Same here, I said. Let's go inside before they start tearing down the curtains. We kept going out every Friday for 4 months, and things kept getting better between us. I didn't want to rush her, but our dates were getting pretty hot and heavy. I found that I enjoyed having her as a friend just as much as I did having her as a girlfriend. We were constantly in touch, talking on the phone, exchanging funny snaps and texts throughout the day. Whenever something caught my eye or made me laugh, I'd share it with her, knowing she'd appreciate it. We were growing really close, and it felt great knowing everything about each other's lives. We started having dinners together every Tuesday, me, Jules, and the girls. We'd hang out, play games, and I found myself really liking Sue, almost as much as I liked her mom. They were so similar that if you knew one, you'd know the other pretty well too. Sure, there were differences, but they both had this charm that made the similarities stand out even more. Things were pretty great, but there was one annoying thing. Megan. She was still in Valerie's life, which meant she was still in mine. I wanted nothing to do with her. Just seeing her made me frustrated. She'd always try to strike up a conversation whenever she picked up Valerie or when I dropped her off at her grandparents' place, where Megan was living now. She'd lost her job at the clinic with Jerry and was working at a different place across town. If she started getting on my nerves, I'd ask her if she'd heard from Jerry. That usually shut her up. One time she asked me, "How long is it going to take for you to forgive me?" "Forgive you? For what?" I shot back. "As far as I know, you don't think you did anything wrong. I've never heard you say, 'I'm sorry, Fred. I was wrong. I'm sorry for trying to make Valerie think you were lying or for trying to take her away from you. I'm sorry for messing up the divorce or for cheating on you with that jerk.'" Of course, she didn't say any of that. She couldn't own up to her mistakes. I wasn't sure what forgiving her would even involve. I'd moved on and found peace. I didn't forget what happened, but I wasn't going to waste my time being bitter. People make mistakes and sometimes do really crappy things, but you just have to accept it and move forward. At first, I wanted to get back at both Jerry and Megan for what they did. But soon enough, I realized that their punishment was just being themselves. They had to live with the choices they made, and I needed to move on and focus on my own life. I wanted to put all the lying and cheating behind me and live my best life. Megan was clearly miserable, and while I didn't wish her any real harm, I definitely wasn't going to be the one to dish it out. I figured if there was any cosmic justice, let it handle Jerry and Megan. I was done with all that drama. It didn't help that Megan seemed even more upset when she found out I was seeing Jules. One evening after I dropped Valerie off at her grandparents' place for the night, Megan came out to the car to stop me. "I hear you're dating one of Valerie's friend's moms," she said. I just stared at her. "Is that true?" she pushed. "That's my business," I replied. "Actually, it's not," she snapped back. "I'm your ex-wife. I have a right to know." "You have no rights where I'm concerned," I told her. "You chose someone else and we're divorced now. My life is mine and yours is yours. Stay out of my business, Megan." I was furious when I drove away. It seemed like she just couldn't let it go. I filled Valerie in on what happened, and she was just as mad as I was. After that, I made sure that Megan never picked Valerie up from our place again. Instead, Bob or Cindy, Valerie's grandparents, came over to get her. It was a relief and took away a big source of stress from my life. On the 7-month anniversary of our trip to the lake, I took Jules out for a special night. We went to a nice restaurant and then hit up a club. Jules doesn't usually drink much, maybe just a beer now and then, but that night she had 2 drinks. I gave her a look when she ordered the second one. She laughed and said, "Guess I'm being a little wild tonight, huh?" "You're perfect, just like you always are," I replied. "Do you really think so, Freddie?" she asked, tilting her head in that adorable way she does. "Because I think you're pretty perfect, too. If I'm so perfect, why haven't you asked me to spend the night?" I must have looked pretty surprised because she burst out laughing. "You haven't even thought about it?" I pulled myself together. "Oh yeah, Jules. I've thought about it a lot, especially since that first day on the boat when you were in that swimsuit. When we started dating, I realized how special you are, and I didn't want to push you or make you uncomfortable." "You won't scare me off," she said, smiling. "I told the girls not to wait up." "Seriously? So what are we doing here?" I asked. "Let's get out of here, Jules. Do you want to spend the night with me?" She blushed, took my hand, and let me help her up. "More than anything right now," she said. As we left, she practically melted into me. With her head resting on my shoulder and holding my arm, we walked home. I let her out when we pulled into the garage, and she stayed close to me all the way to the bedroom. I turned Jules around at the foot of the bed and gave her a kiss. It was one of the best kisses I'd ever experienced, and it felt like it went on forever. When we finally pulled apart to catch our breath, she looked up at me with those warm, brown eyes of hers. She wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "Make love to me, Fred. I'm a little scared." "Don't be," I reassured her. "I love you, Jules. You know that, right?" "I thought you did," she said softly. "But I needed to hear it. I love you too, Fred." I carried her around beside the bed with her arms around my neck and placed her gently on the bed. I moved over her, careful to keep my weight from crushing her. "How many have you had?" I whispered in her ear. "3, she murmured. "Never anything like that." "God, Freddie, I feel stuffed," she groaned. "Damn, you've got a huge Johnson." We fell asleep wrapped around each other, and we ended up making love twice during the night, once when I started it and once when she did. The next morning, I woke up on my back with Jules half on top of me, her hair spread out and her cheek resting against my shoulder. I just lay there, watching her sleep and gently playing with her hair until she stirred and opened her eyes. She snuggled in closer and let out a contented sigh. "I belong here, Freddie," she murmured. "I know," I replied. "Would you want to wake up like this every day?" She blinked at me. "You mean, live together?" "Yeah, but I'm actually asking if you'll marry me, Julie Barnes." She lifted her little left hand and wiggled her fingers. "Uh-oh," she said with a grin. "Something seems to be missing." "Hold that thought," I said as I started to get out of bed. "I'll hold the thought," she giggled. "But I can't hold anything else. I really need to pee." I laughed and gave her a playful swat, making her squeal. "Go ahead and then come back here." She darted off, a little naked bundle of energy, and I headed down to my office, stopping to use the bathroom myself. I grabbed what I needed from my safe, and when I returned, Jules was curled up under the covers, looking cozy and warm. I got back into bed and took her left hand again. Looking into her eyes, all I saw was love. "Julie, will you marry me?" I asked, sliding the ring onto her finger. It was a bit big and would need resizing, but it fit for now. She examined the ring and said, "It's beautiful. It looks like it's from another time. Where did you get it? When did you get it?" "Remember I told you about going to an auction?" I said. "That was about a month ago." "Yeah, I remember. They were auctioning off an estate, right?" "Exactly. What I didn't tell you was that I saw this ring in the catalog and went with the plan to buy it and propose. It's from England, made around 1810 for the Duchess of Avon. It has a lot of history. Do you like it?" "I love it," she said, looking thrilled. "It's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen." "So, are you going to answer my question?" I asked, smiling. "What? Oh my God, Fred. Yes, I'll marry you." I laughed and pulled her close, giving her a big hug.